Paul, thank you so much for joining us here in Wichita, Kansas.
Thank you for having me.
Your piece, I have to say, is something that I found extremely peaceful and beautifully done. Why don't you share with the viewers who haven't had a chance to see it a little bit about your piece?
Sure, yeah. So The Wheat Harvest is a short documentary. It's 10 minutes long, and it is basically a day in the life of the wheat harvest in western Kansas, where I'm from. Rush County, the town is La Crosse. It's about 1,200 people who live there, and so it's kind of an environment I grew up around, and I always thought the actual harvest was a really visually interesting thing to be around, and I thought it would make a good documentary film. And so it's basically in the summer when the farmers have planted their wheat in the fall, and it's the wheat is grown and ready to be cut. So the big tractors and combines come in, and they cut the wheat, and they try to get it done as fast as possible because there's always a chance another storm could come, and rain and hail could damage the wheat, so they want to get it done as fast as possible. And so capturing that, and also the sort of sensory and auditory experience of that, because when you're out there, you know it's oddly peaceful, like you said, because you're just listening to the sounds of the wind rustling through the wheat fields, and then the machinery itself. When you're like riding inside a combine, or you're hearing a combine drive by, it's just kind of this steady hum that kind of lulls you. Or when you're riding in the combine, you can almost fall asleep if you're not paying attention, because it's just this kind of monotonous hum. So beyond just the visuals of the piece, I wanted to capture kind of that auditory experience.
It did. I'm like, this is very zen.
Yeah, somebody after the screening told me they wished they could just play the film on a 10-hour loop to fall asleep to, which was actually a nice compliment.
Good.
Yeah.
You have some very unique shots with it, where you're seeing inside equipment. How did you go about getting those angles? They're kind of unique.
Yeah, so the main camera we shot on was an Alexa Mini LF, which is your big, kind of what most movies are shot on, your big, bulky camera with the big lenses and all that. So that's for a lot of the static shots, a lot of the wide shots, and then some of the ones you're describing, we actually also had a GoPro with us. And the GoPro's great. It's tiny. You can mount it on anything. So like the shot inside the bin of the combine where you see the wheat filling up, that was a GoPro just mounted there. And then we mounted a GoPro to the front of like the combine header, so you could see the wheat coming in the front. And then the coolest shot in there that we've got is one where the GoPro is actually on the ground and the combine drives over it. And that was actually not my idea. It was one of the people we were filming. They're custom cutters from Oklahoma, actually, who come up to cut wheat in Kansas. And one of the women there, she actually came up with that idea. She said, "Why don't you put the GoPro on the ground? I'll drive over it, and I can align the combine so that the wheels, the GoPro won't be in danger of getting crushed or anything, and it'll be a cool shot." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And we did it, and it turned out really cool.
It did. And you mentioned, of course, that this is not just men out in the field doing this anymore. There are women involved with this. There are puppy dogs involved with this. I loved having the one woman driving, and she has her best friend right there riding along with her.
Yeah, actually, they had 4 or 5 of those dogs. I only showed like the one on the lap, but they're all the same breed. I think one of the dogs was the mother of 2 of the other puppies or something, but I don't know what the breed was. But yeah, they just 4 or 5 dogs, and they would, open the door to the combine, and the dogs would hop up, and she had like, one was asleep on her lap, and 2 were on the floor in front of her. It was really cute. And to what you said about, the women being involved, I think, 50 years ago, maybe, harvest and farming has always been a family operation, but maybe back in the day, so to speak, the women's job would just be to cook the meals for the men, so that when they could stop, they could have their meal and then be on their way. But yeah, it's everybody's involved in every way now. Yeah, the woman who you saw in the film, Lori, she drives the combine. She does everything just the same as the men.
I'm like, I want to learn to drive one of those, and because it's so open, I wouldn't be scared in one of those fields. It's not like you're going to hurt someone unless they're in front of you, but that would be so cool. But it was kind of the experience of getting to do that in some of your shots, which was neat to say, hey, this is something someone might look into for a career even.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting, too, you said about learning to drive a combine. I have not driven one myself, but they were like, you want to try to drive this? Because they said it's pretty easy, actually. Like some of the, like the younger generations, they'll start teaching them to drive the combine before they can get their driver's license, which is really funny. But yeah, and all the combines and the tractors now they've got the GPS and all this stuff that I don't want to say it's easy because I've not done it, but they say it doesn't, it's not too difficult to pick up on the actual driving the combine. A lot of the other stuff, the more physical things you have to do are, much probably more the difficult part of it, actually.
And you also you showed them going to the granary to, I guess they sell off what they've pulled or what they've harvested. You showed that it's tested for water content to do the weight, if I understand that correctly.
Yes. So, yeah, and it's just an interesting process. So it goes to the grain bin. So the truck is full of wheat. They weigh the truck. They take a moisture sample, as you see in the film, and I think the moisture reading, it's like the percent is like if it's above 11% moisture, you get docked for how much the wheat is worth, basically, and if it's below. If I got the numbers wrong, I apologize to any farmers. But if it's below that number, that's good, and you want to keep it under that number because the more moisture means the wheat is not as good. So they take a moisture sample of it, and then they dump the wheat, and then they weigh the truck again empty, and then they can see exactly how much. The difference of those two numbers, how much wheat was in there. And again, it's another process that, when the girl inside the co-op, she, takes the sample, she dumps the wheat, then they literally separate the grain from the chaff. And it's just I think a fascinating process that if you're not around it, it's probably something you aren't familiar with or maybe have never seen.
And it's so impactful to everyone. I mean, this is what we need for bread, pasta. I mean, there's so much that this goes into that the world uses on a daily basis, multiple times a day, and they haven't thought how it got from farm to table. And so you've provided this view of it, and you take through the full, it's a 24-hour span, basically, because we're seeing the sunrise, and then we're seeing... I have to say, it was kind of almost like, I wonder if someone could do a space movie using that with the combines in the dark field with their lights on. I knew what it was, but it was almost like, are we going to have an alien here? No.
Yeah, it's a cool process, and seeing how it's you work from basically sun up to sundown, and then you try to again cut the wheat, get as much wheat cut in a day, again because it's Kansas. A storm could roll in at any moment and disrupt what you're doing, and it often does. And like sometimes it'll rain, and then you have to wait a couple days before you can cut again before the wheat's dry, because you don't want you want the wheat to be dry, and also you don't want your machinery to get stuck in the mud, and you have to pull it out. So it's it's I suppose a delicate process and a difficult one. But I hope I did justice to it.
Are there other things? Of course, you've had experience with farm community because of where you were raised. You're into film. Are there other experiences of the farming world that you plan to do other documentaries on?
Well, actually, so the story behind this film is I've been for a while now developing a feature film, a narrative feature film, not a documentary, where it takes place in a small town in Kansas, and the backdrop is the wheat harvest. And so where this little documentary originated is last summer, my cinematographer and I, we wanted to do some camera tests, some lens tests. So we rented all the gear and we went out to Kansas, stayed with my parents, and we kind of just wanted to test some lenses, see how things would look. And we were there for a week, and we ended up getting enough footage that I was able to cut together this documentary. And so now the documentary, I'm kind of hoping that it acts a bit like a proof of concept as I'm pitching the feature, which I've been working on for a while and I'm currently trying to raise the financing for it. And so when I've got my pitch deck, my lookbook for the film, I've got pictures, I've got character descriptions, all that stuff, and then I've got a link. I can show them a link to this to say, look at the visual possibilities of shooting in a location like this. So yeah, narrative feature hopefully on the way sometime in the next year or so.
That would be fantastic. Well, I thank you so much for your time with us today. For those that want to help support you with your project or want to be able to follow you, how do they do that?
That's a good question, actually. I guess for now, you can follow me on Instagram. My handle's at pdechant5. That's PDECHANT and the number 5. And check out for updates there. It's where I would probably be posting them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate the festival for including me, and it's been a great experience. So thank you.
Very good. Everyone check it out, The Wheat Harvest.